Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, the Senate Judiciary Committee is busy. They're not busy focused on the crisis on our southern border. In 9 months, we've had 0 hearings on the crisis on the southern border, even though 1.2 million people have crossed illegally, and there's a public health crisis playing out, but Senate Democrats have no time to worry about that. Senate Judiciary Committee is not worried about big tech censoring and silencing free speech. That is not a concern for big Democrats that are funded by big tech. No, instead, their priorities are, number one, amnesty. There's no priority they care more about than amnesty. We've had 4 amnesty hearings this year. And number 2, trying to intimidate the Supreme Court and Article 3 judges. That is a high priority. I have to say, the senator from Rhode Island, I always enjoy his charts. I do wonder where the red yarn is connecting one conspiracy point to the other. And I will say this topic today on the shadow docket, that is ominous. Shadows are bad. Like, shadows are really, really bad. Mr. LaCour, actually, General LaCour, you're a Solicitor General, damn it. Let's use proper titles. General LaCour, the Senate Democrats have a point here. Before Donald J. Trump, the Supreme Court had never decided emergency motions. Is that correct?
Any emergency proceeding whatsoever?
Yeah.
That's not correct, Senator.
Well, wait a second. Before Donald J. Trump, every single case the Supreme Court decided was fully briefed and argued. Isn't that right?
That would not be correct.
You mean they've decided emergency motions before the advent of the terrifying president from Trump?
Yes, before our 45th president.
Professor Mascott, you clerked at the Supreme Court for Justice Thomas. Surely it must be correct that there was no shadow docket and you worked on no emergency matters during your time as a clerk. Is that right?
Well, Senator, certainly the orders docket.
You've got to turn your mic on.
Certainly the orders docket's typical, and yes, it's been around for a very long time. And on the jurisdictional points, California versus Texas, just last term, 2021, Justice Breyer actually underscored what the court said again in this most recent ruling here, which is folks need to have standing and can provide remedies only against parties, not general concerns about bills.
You know, there's an old line that hypocrisy is the tribute that vice pays to virtue. The Democrats are fond of concocting ominous terms. Dark money is one of their favorites, and I mention hypocrisy because the Democrats receive far more dark money than Republicans. So while they're shoveling in hidden money from giant donors, they complain hidden money from giant donors is a terrible thing. And then they come up with a shadow docket, which I suppose dark money ought to cast a shadow, although actually it ought to be light money, I suppose, if it's casting a shadow. What they're calling a shadow docket is the ordinary operation of every court that's been in existence since the ratification of our Constitution, whether a district court or court of appeals or the United States Supreme Court. If there's a motions docket, the motions docket is handled on the motions docket. That has been always the case. When I was a clerk at the Supreme Court, I remember every damn execution in the country. The clerks are there until late at night, and many of the states have executions at midnight, and so on the West Coast it'd be 3 in the morning. And you'd have the clerks there till 3 in the morning dealing with the emergency motions, that every time there's an execution, 30 minutes before the execution, you get something. At the time I was clerking, they were faxed in. Professor Mascott, you probably don't know what faxes are. They weren't there when you were clerking, but it would be an emergency appeal at the end. And strangely enough, you'd call your justice and wake up your justice at midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning to cast a vote on the emergency appeal filed at the very end to try to delay the execution. So this whole notion of a shadow docket is called an operating court that is deciding emergency motions. But look, what this is really about is trying to demonize Texas and trying to demagogue on the question of life. Now, when it comes to demonizing Texas, I suppose I can understand the incentive of Senate Democrats to do so. Chairman Durbin is from Illinois. I just looked up the statistics in the year 2020 of what states people are moving out of. The number 1 state is New Jersey. The number 2 state is New York. The number 3 state is Illinois. Illinois did better. A year ago, it was the number 2 state for people fleeing. Last year, it was number 3. So Illinois is doing better. Where do the people from Illinois go? Well, clearly they don't go to the hellholes like Texas or Florida. Well, no, actually, that's exactly where they go. They go to Texas and Florida. Why? Because we actually have jobs there. We have low taxes and we protect people's rights. Look, Today's Democrats on the question of abortion are radical and extreme. Their position, they support unlimited abortion on demand up till the moment of birth, partial birth abortion, with government funding, with no parental consent, no parental notification. It is radical, it is extreme. 9% of Americans agree with the positions of every Democrat on this committee because they have handed their abortion agenda over to the radical left. Texas made a perfectly reasonable decision to protect life. Life is valuable. You know, I would note the Texas law triggers when the unborn child has a heartbeat. The last I checked, clumps of cells don't have heartbeats. But the extreme Democrats don't want to talk about that, so instead they concoct a hearing on ominous Texas, ominous shadow dockets, all of which is political theater, none of which is addressing the real issues people care about.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.